Welcome everybody to our Behind the Fluff Inspiring the Next CMO podcast series. You can find lots of great resources on our website to help raise your game at www.internationalbunch.com/be inspired. Now today I would like to welcome Santa Marku. Santa is a highly respected senior global marketing leader with valued insight into strategic and digital transformation, marketing technology, product brand and digital marketing. Santa was also my line manager some 14 years ago at British Standards Institution and was pivotal in my development from a marketer as an executive to a manager. So hello, Santa.
Hello there, Lou. It's lovely to see you. Lovely. Really appreciate you inviting me to have this chat. It's been a long time, but I've seen you develop and what you've done over the last few years. And I'm really proud in terms of what you've achieved working at the International Bunch, setting it up, and actually really inspiring in that way. So I'm pleased to be here and thank you.
Well, you were part of my little adventure, getting me to where I am today. So thank you.
Well, that's the best thing. Well,
it is.
You're welcome. No, but that's part of, what I've been doing.
Do I need to make you a stakeholder?
Years, really. You can do whatever you like, my lovely. I guess the point here is that this is what I love to see going forward. As a leader, you love to sort of work with people and see them flourish, learn, but also learn. I take a lot from that as well, sort of learning from what other people are learning as they go through, listening to what their experiences are, and then being able to adapt that through your career, also with other teams that you work with. And I've worked with lots of people from interns that have come in for a year because they're having a gap year at university or it's part of their sandwich course versus senior leaders like in other parts of the business, MDs or specific directors that are running a business unit. And it's always good to see how people improve, how people flourish, how people grow. So I love that, and I guess that's something that I love doing with teams. So you were part of that team, I was part of that team, and it's great to see the progression.
Well, you were one of my best bosses. You are up there.
Wow.
Yeah, in the top 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very proud.
Through my whole career, absolutely. Now, before we get started, we do a campaign called #IntBunch Word of the Day, and we like to feature a word that means something, and it could be any type of word. What would your word of the day be?
I guess it would be serendipity. I love that word. I love it because it's clearly a phenomenon that is about discovering things almost by chance, but you need to have been discovering or looking for things in order for it to manifest itself. And I love that because it's an unexpected discovery, and we should accept that type of discovery, and then think, wow, how did we come about it? What triggered that? So that would be my word, serendipity. I love it.
Brilliant. That is an excellent word. And you're absolutely right. You have to be, in some sense, you have to be doing things to be looking for it to actually make discoveries. And you have discoveries that may not have been what you were initially looking for, but at least you were doing something to discover, if that makes sense.
Exactly. You're not going to be sitting on a sofa waiting for a discovery to happen.
Exactly.
It works. You've got to be looking, you've got to be driven, you've got to be committed to looking for something that you're trying to make an improvement, you're trying to drive, a particular objective, and then you think, oh wow, this is really interesting. And this is where you look at, people are calling it now to a certain extent, new category creation. It's like, what is something that is a need, for example, that hasn't really been explored by customers, and then you look at it, it could be something that's existing, and actually you see a different a way of positioning it and messaging it, and therefore it becomes a brand new way of thinking, a brand new way of communicating a particular issue around a product or a service, for example. So those are the sort of things. That's why I see those things as working quite closely with the serendipity piece, because it is you still have to do something. And I think that's really important, and I think we should use that word more so in our
Yeah.
daily lives.
I completely agree, because when you said it, I was thinking to myself, in the copy stuff that we do, I was thinking, why are we not using that word? It is such an excellent word.
It is a great word. Love it.
So yeah, you'll probably see that it will definitely start trickling through into some of the stuff that we do. Absolutely.
Good. Pleasure.
And I love that you just taught me a new buzz term as well.
Oh, I don't know. It's just a really interesting. It's in the S in the dictionary. It's really cool.
Okay, so first things first, we want to know a little bit more about you before we get into about your career. So what's the best thing that you have discovered in the last year?
The best thing that I've discovered in the last year, that I can make some decent cocktails, I suppose, even though I don't drink. I don't really drink. I don't drink. Only on special occasions, which happens to be every day. No, I'm joking. I might have something at Christmas. But I bought myself, no, actually I didn't buy myself. I was out with a friend and she went, oh, because we've not seen each other for ages, I forgot to get you your birthday present. I'm like, okay,
Ooh.
that was in March. I'm going to get you, and she got me a cocktail making set. So the appliances, should have put it up on the back so you could have seen them. But
yeah.
so it was actually inspired by my son who turned 18. And he had a few friends come round, and I thought, I'm going to be a really responsible mother. I'm going to look after them, make sure they don't drink too much, but give them a taste of something.
Give them mocktails. Oh, really? This has got alcohol in it?
No, 18, it's okay. We're not in the US here yet, so it's okay. He was 18. So I made him a tequila sunrise, which they all thought was delicious.
Nice.
And it is delicious because it's orange and it's got grenadine and a little bit of tequila. So I used all the appliances and everything. So I've discovered that. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's one of the things, I suppose, where we've had a bit more time to do these sort of things. I guess I can say that. I'm sure that there are plenty of others. I'll say just sort of like experimenting with those cocktails. Fantastic. On other people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can have mocktails, can't you?
I can have mocktails, yeah. It's just that it's not, it's fine. Oh God, I feel terrible. I feel like a terrible mother, but no, it's an experience. It's an experience because it was one.
Not terrible. I think you'll sort of be like, oh my God, my mum is so cool. She made a
I don't know, they think about that, especially when you're embarrassing them in front of their friends.
Well, yeah.
But never mind, as long as you're feeding them with something,
exactly.
They're all right, they're happy.
Exactly. And like when Santa and I first met before, because we haven't chatted for many, many years, and when we caught up before we did this podcast, I was saying, I was asking her about how her son is, and I just couldn't believe that when I was working with Santa, he was a little toddler running around, and now he's like, off to uni, and it's like, oh my God, this is, wow.
Time flies.
It does.
Time really flies. Clearly, I just don't know where it's all gone, but I'm really, it's quite interesting because my whole career at BSI has almost been paralleled with my son, because he was 6 months old when I started at BSI. And, he used to have the Christmas parties. He used to come in at Christmas time, his first entrance into BSI building, I think he was 9 months old. He came with my dad, and my dad put him in. He was still barely sort of on one of the harnesses, trying to keep him straight and stuff. And he was coming in as well because he was doing his homework, coming straight from school. Great place, actually, because BSI permitted that in terms of making sure that people could see that type of environment, and he was very good, and it meant that I could put more time and effort into my career at BSI as well. So and of course you've also met my folks.
Love them
in the what was it, 2006 or so, and it's quite interesting how I've seen them grow as well, and you think, oh, how different, how things pass quite quickly. You don't realise because you see them every day, and then all of a sudden it hits you. Wow, especially during the pandemic. Being of a certain age, it was quite difficult for them. So, but they only live 197 yards away from me.
I love that. That's
according to Google.
That.
Well, it's according to Google, isn't it? So I put my house in and I put theirs, and that's what it comes to. So, round the corner.
Metrics, don't you?
Absolutely. Wow, I figured that's what it had. We are going back to imperial, are we? I hope not. We should be keeping with the metric. That's good.
Oh, fantastic. So who inspires you?
Well, interesting you said that, very close to home. And I was going to actually just say, it's like, you know, my 75-year-old mother, really, I've seen her through the years sort of really be the backbone of our family, and my dad, of course. 75 and still working, and has been working during the pandemic as a passenger assistant, if you like, for children going to special needs school. Oh. So, you know, she's been in a minibus twice a day, making sure that they're all belted up, making sure that they're not hurting themselves, making sure that things are working. And she's just done it. She's been amazing. And even though she's, you know, she could have shielded for longer, you know, she decided that she just wanted to do it, and she continued to do it. Clearly, the council had given her the PPE and all the rest of it. And, you know, she's really loved by those children. Yeah. And she gets a new, you know, she sees them through their entire secondary education from 11 to 18. Wow. And she sees the differences, and they love her to bits. You know, it's Rosa this and Rosa that, you know, so it's lovely to see that. So that's where I can see from that, really, really close to home. From a professional perspective, there's a couple of, well, there's one in particular that I think has really helped me, especially when we've been doing digital work. Yeah. Websites, Jacob Nielsen from the Nielsen Norman Group, and really he's the guru for web user experience and usability. Amazing. I've used a lot of his stuff, really, his empirical research to help and support ideas and to help and support us get to a certain place when it comes to websites, because everyone wants a flashy website, don't they? Yeah. But if it doesn't meet the criteria of the user, and it's too flashy and there's too much, you need to think of that experience. And you know, we're all happy. I know I've been through this a lot. Oh, I like this. Can we just do this? Boom. It's like, yeah, but what is the purpose of that boom? What is the purpose of something moving when you think people need to have this information in an accessible way? You know, for me, it's about substance. It's about information architecture rather than design. Visual design is the last thing, and if you know this, but visual design should be the last thing you think about when it comes to websites, because it's about the infrastructure, it's about the information, it's connecting people to information. And remember, always looking at it in conventional ways, not to try and do something different just for the sake of it, but do things that are obvious. You know, where does the menu bar sit? Where does the location sit? So that it's obvious to any user rather than it being having to find it. Exactly. At the end of the day, you want to make it as easy as possible to get people to connect to your information and to reach the objective, which could be downloading a white paper on sustainability, or it could be actually, I want a quote for a particular service that I'm looking for. I've come to you, make it easy for me to do that, to make it easy for me to do business with you.
When you were young, what did you want to be?
Well, I really don't know. I didn't really have much of, when it came to ambition and stuff, it was like, you know, we give you a background, really. It's quite interesting. My mum and dad came, immigrants from Italy. They had to work and they left us on our own. I'll tell you something, if it'd been these days, we wouldn't be here. You know, we'd be in social care or something. I don't know. But I think a lot of people have this type of experience. You know, I was taking I was going to school, walking to school on my own at the age of 5, taking my 5, 6, you know, taking my brother, who was a little bit younger, crossing Clerkenwell Road, you know, in the city of London. Getting to where we needed to get to. And then also what was quite interesting is that, you know, we didn't really have that support from the school structure either, really. You know, I remember having a careers talk with Mrs. Carroll at a school that I used to go to, and it's no longer there. She said, oh yeah, you're Italian, you've got some languages, you should go into international banking. And I'm like, we didn't really have that, I mean, seriously, we did not have that type of communication at that, but also from a younger age, we just got on with it. We were there. I can't even remember my parents going to a school play, because we would be out off in Italy as soon as the door shut. Yeah. School. My mum and dad would be working late. My father was a chef, and therefore we had lots of different shifts. My mum did everything. She was a tea lady, right? A tea lady, a cleaner, all of those sort of things that people that came in waves of immigration did at that time. A great story, you know, my brother, who was younger than me, my mum used to take him to a solicitor's office in Doughty Street and put him on the tea trolley to take him with him, because you have no one to leave your kids with.
I love it.
Yeah, so she was a tea lady in those days, where you used to go, would you like a cup of tea and a biscuit? Would you like, you know, seriously. So, you know, those are great. But in terms of a career, in terms of what I wanted to be, none of that. But like I said, they inspire me because they've got to this point. It's that work ethic. It's making sure that they, you know, provide for their families, all of this sort of stuff. So, but I did go into, I was going to go to university, actually, which was really interesting, but I deferred. I got an unconditional offer at Holloway in Bedford to read Italian. But then I went to an agency. I wanted to take a year out and ended up at Thomson Holidays, the best time of my life. You know, went on educationals. I'd never paid to go to Benidorm, but I went on an educational there to check out some hotels, as I did to Tunisia, as I did to other places. Yeah, exactly, it was an education. But I had the best time, and I was in finance at that time. It was an overseas payments department where we had to reconcile things over a 2-week period, paying those hotels. And at that point, that's where I learned a lot in terms of, you know, leadership. It's really interesting at the age, quite a young age. I didn't go to university in the end to experience that per se. I did my degrees. I did my degrees and my diplomas as I was working, because I knew they'd come in handy. I wanted to learn more about business, etc. And that's how I did my degrees in that way. But equally, I had lots of experience in finance. And then I thought, for some reason, I was also training lots of people, writing documentation, how to users, how to do what they needed to do step by step. I was managing a team, supervising a team at the age of, I think it might have been 19 or something like that.
Wow. So,
and I think that's where I really got to learn about people and how they work and what makes them tick and what their hot buttons are, and how you can really make sure that they go down a route that they really want to go down, you know, make sure that we coach them and stuff like that. And then I decided, right, for some reason, I think I might want to go into marketing. So I got a job at the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and there, where they supported me as a marketing assistant, that's where I started, you know, at the Chartered Institute of Marketing Accountants, and actually was, you know, sending out packages to schools, running business school, business competitions, if you like. We used to go into a school and get people to play parts of being part of an organisation and what they had to do. And really highlighting that from a student perspective, and dealing with companies as well from a professional development perspective. Again, you know, trying to get them to do the CIMA qualifications, etc. And I was there for a couple of years where I mean, I loved it. I got great. I was traveling up and down the UK. It was like, you know, oh wow, quite a young person doing this, running these sessions, enjoying every minute of it, but organising the, you know, the logistical part of it and everything. And fantastic. I had a great time. So
you
after that,
you had a lot of fun in your career.
Oh, I did, but and especially after that, what happened is I then took, I got that under my belt. I got my diploma, if you like, from marketing, CIM, and then went, you know what, I'm going to take a year out or over and just go travelling, which is what I did, because then I didn't have to do it cheaply either, you know. I didn't have to do the whole, we did some hostel pieces, so we went, you know, Southeast Asia, Australia, worked there for a greengrocer, florist, and a sandwich. You have to do what you have to do in order to get to where you get to. So, you know, I had a great experience, and then came back and worked for Euromonitor, so the market research and consultancy organisation. Set up their Chicago office, actually, for marketing perspective. Was there for about a year and a half, 2 years. Loved it. Again, really been exposed to a lot of things. Quite early on, and that's really provided a really great grounding for where I am now. So
fantastic. So my last question to you in this sense is, if you were to have dinner tonight with anybody, whether they are alive or dead, or just anybody you would ever want to in the world, who would it be?
Well, I guess there are a couple. Well, actually, there are a couple of. Well, I think there's probably 3 people. It's awful, isn't it? I can't go just one, can I?
No, you can have as many as you like.
Well, you know, I would think there are 3 that would come straight to my mind. Clearly, David Attenborough is just a genius in everything he's done over the years, in terms of how he's achieved what he's achieved, how he's messaged, what he's used his He's used his expertise, if you like, to get the message out really, really quite powerfully. I'd love to find out more about that. Sherry Blair. I know some people think, oh God, you know, Sherry Booth, right? She's one of the most eminent human rights lawyers, but she doesn't get the press that she deserves. I think that's because it's her time with, you know, in government, not in government, but her husband's government. And you know, I'm sure she's got tons and tons of stories to tell. And the other one, Leonardo da Vinci. And the reason why I say him is because he was a genius, and he was he was a genius who did lots of things. He was ahead of his time. People thought he was nuts. He was a crazy man, but clearly not, because you can see things that have come out from what he did all those years ago to the present day. And I see that and I think, right, okay, so, you know, sometimes you just have to wait. You have to just wait for your time to come. You might not see it, but you can push it, but you push it and you get yourself a reputation that you might not, it wouldn't be unfair, it would be unfair, sorry. So that would be quite an interesting selection of people, I think.
That would be quite a conversation. And I think the Sherry Blair one's really interesting because I watched something on the television the other day where they had Keir Starmer, and that's not my political party, but actually I thought it was really interesting when he was talking, and he was talking about some really quite personal things about his family and when his mother passed away and all this kind of stuff, and it made him so much more human, and that human connection is, as we know as marketeers, is incredibly important, and that resonance. But it did make me appreciate and respect him more. So that's the same with Cherie, that I'd probably look into her a bit more now, because for me, in my life, she was Tony Blair's wife. I never really, and like you said, without the press attention, and the press are very good at what they show and what they don't, and how they manipulate your minds effectively. So I didn't really appreciate what she does, or even think about wanting to know. So I definitely want to look her up.
I mean, the stuff that she's done has been amazing. It's just that, you know, now that she's out, you know, that always continued in the background, but that's not what you saw, you know. And it's a bit like at the moment, you know, you know, they do say the saying, behind every great man, you know, there's a greater woman. And you know what, and you see that in a lot of places, right? I mean, it sounds, you know, I don't want to sound glib or anything, but you can see that. So it's really interesting for me that there are some brilliant women out there that sometimes don't get full credit for really, in their own right, get the exposure of the achievements that they've made. So,
but also behind every great woman, there may be a greater woman.
True, I totally
agree. Or a greater man.
Or a greater man, or whatever you might call. Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Because there. But
I think that's right.
Yeah.
It's also looking at, you know, the support structure behind someone, and and who's inspiring them and propelling them forward. So I think that's really important. So what are you most proud of in your career then?
I guess it's the transformation around the digital, moving from the traditional stuff through to digital, actually becoming you know, linchpin in the business in terms of marketing, but also being part of how, you know, people work on product parts as well. And really that's the way forward, and actually aligning those where possible. So, you know, as part of the transformation from a marketing digital perspective, you know, it's transforming not only the applications, but the way that you do marketing. So improving around SEO, SEM, social, automation, nurturing, engagement, and doing that in that way. Content development, which is more around, you know, the brand. What is the purpose of the organization, and how do you push that through? So that's what I'm really proud. I mean, that's quite big. That's taken some time. That's taken some time, and I'm proud around the fact that from a digital perspective, that was where, you know, I stood, and that's what I, you know, managed to achieve and accomplish all the way through all the different elements of it, going through my career there. So that's I'm really proud of that.
No, absolutely. And so you should be. It's an incredible amount of experience and expertise that you have in there. And also, I'm sure that you've had a lot of lessons learned as well. And you know, it's and I think that BSI has been a fantastic organization, because when I look back when we worked together, and this was like 15 years ago, however long it was, and we were, you know, that's when Salesforce.com was being introduced as a marketing tool to help marketers to be able to task their key stakeholders to give them deadlines to come back with content. And, you know, it's really clear that British Standards Institution was doing things really ahead of the game, and you were part of the team that were leading that, and then took a much more active role as you moved around the organization to really propel that even further. And, you know, it's when I look at some organizations now who are just thinking about Salesforce.com, and I know they're much smaller, but I think, you know, gosh, some have been doing this for so long that there's some incredible benchmarks and lessons learned for you already out there to be doing better and not to be doing the same mistakes that were already done.
Absolutely, totally agree. It's a moving feast as well, you know. So it's about how organisations have their salespeople as well, how they're structured, and what they're tasked to do. You talk about Salesforce. You know, we implemented Pardot, which is the automation part of Salesforce, if you like. It's the marketing cloud piece. And actually, what's happened there is that we could get some really good marketing qualified leads, if you like. But actually, when do you pass them on? When do they move from to a salesperson to have a conversation? And it's really interesting because that culture has to change as well, in the fact that you're having conversations rather than just closing deals. You know, and that's all about training. That's all about finding the right trigger points, the touch points, and where you can move that across, and using data and analytics to help you support that, because that's what I've used across my career. It's more like, you know, I want to make some decisions. What do I look at? I look at the data. I don't go, put a finger in the air and go, yeah, I've got a bit of a gut feel there. Well, you know, you have to balance that. Use the data to help you in the first instance, especially when it comes to digital. It's so easy. It's the simplest thing, and look at it over a period of time and not look at it in isolation. There are other things that you need to look at as well. So that's where data and analytics is really, really key around what needs to happen around this and making decisions and trying to push, you know, to achieve what we need to achieve for an organisation. Everyone's into doubling their revenues and all this sort of stuff. So you need to think about how you could do that in an accelerated way, without any detriment to the current business as well. You might want to take a few hits, but you need to make sure that you're making those and you're doing those strategically and tactically, to make sure you get to where you need to get to. Otherwise, you know, you could be making some, I'm sure within publishing, you know, this brand new database comes out and you're thinking about, well, who are we still servicing? How do we migrate these people? Can we migrate these people? Or are we going to take a loss? You don't never want to take a loss, but you try and manage that process as well as possible as an organisation. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking at return on investment as well, isn't it? Because some people may just see pound signs and say, oh, we're going to take a loss. But actually, if they look deeper into return on investment and how much time is being taken to do this, other costs are associated to that, they may suddenly go, oh, actually, it's going to be more advantageous if we do just cancel it. As some like to say, sunset it.
Exactly. I like that. It's quite important I like that. But it is important to look at that, and that's why decisions need to be based on the data and the analysis that you have. And also, as an organisation, what the culture is. Do you like taking risks or not? So you need to think about that, and also how much do you want to move the dial? How far do you want to get to where you need to get to? You know, it's really important to take those things into consideration. But if you're a big organisation, there are lots of factors that you need to look at anyway. And it's like, sometimes it could stop you. But if you set your mind on stuff, you might need to think, well, I need to focus on a particular area, and look at it in an iterative way. You know, you're looking at it in terms of what could step by step, rather than trying to do everything. You know, boil the ocean and then nothing really happens. You know, so it's really important then to get that focus. But everyone needs to be focused on that. I always talk about, you know, you've got your business as usual stuff. You can't just let go of your business as usual stuff and just do the really nice creative pieces. You've got to find a way of doing both, and then they merge. You know, so that's really important in terms of how
you have to accept it, don't you? I mean, many of us don't like doing admin, but you have to do admin, right?
Yeah, you do, or you can automate it.
Yeah, to a point.
If possible, outsource it if you can.
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
I know. Yeah, who's got to do the VAT returns this month?
Oh yeah, gosh, yeah. I love. That's the thing when you're a small business owner, is like you wear a lot of hats. And
wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, and yesterday I was accounts. And so it's just like, I think I need to get someone in to do accounts.
I know. Hey,
invoicing. I need someone to do invoicing.
Invoicing, gosh. Yeah. That's what accountants are for, right? Well, that's what bookkeepers and all the rest of it. But again, technology to help you. But again,
I do.
It's only as good as the user. It's only as good as the experience and the process that users have. Again, you're
absolutely
going back to MarTech. It's only good as it's configured and how it's used. And it's because it won't work on its own necessarily. Someone's got to set it up. Someone's got to train people. Someone's got to work on it all the time. There has to be a roadmap. What's the next step? So it's not a one-off thing, as we talked about. It's an ongoing journey. It never stops.
Yeah, absolutely. It does never stop. And for me, it's about taking time to look at the process I've currently got. How can I refine that? But then it's also about, I need to block that time out to do that. And I know it'll be great once I've done it. But right now I'm like, yes, not a priority. I'll do it some point.
No, especially because there are lots of all these other things that I need to do, which are, really interesting. I want to learn.
Like this.
Yeah, like this. And, it might make me a bit more money. So, that's all good.
Yeah, exactly. So what have you found most challenging in your career?
Most challenging really is having to really talk to lots of people at different levels, but managing it. It's an organisation being ready to accept to a certain extent that this is the way things need to go. I talk about. I remember one of my ex-bosses said, "Santa, you just have to." Some people just take a bit more time to understand what it is that needs to happen. Okay, and that's fine. So it's understanding that, and that can be quite a challenge, especially because you're driven and you want to get things done, because you can see that it's going to make, it's going to be a great revolutionary thing, or it's going to make a big difference to people's work life. It's going to be a big difference to clients, and you want to get there, but you have to make sure that people are with you on the journey, and that means that you might have to do extra. Communication, one-to-ones, just to get through and get their ideas and find out what it is that maybe might be stopping them to doing what needs to happen, But that, I think, is a challenge everywhere, because it's something that, with more complex organisation, having worked in a matrix, people have got their specific focus, and you don't want to interrupt what they're doing necessarily, because it could have an implication to the bottom line. But it's something that, may take a bit longer to get in there, and I guess you just have to come to terms with the fact that people need to be ready. As I said before, you can't force people to do things; they have to come with you, and that make it a lot easier and smoother. So I spent a lot of time talking to lots of different people across the globe on that.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting point out of that, though, in the respect that, and I help to coach a lot of junior marketeers, or not necessarily junior, but it could be at any different stage, but those that don't feel confident in asking people that are more senior to them about doing something, and they'll get blocked with something, and they don't have the confidence. What they'll do is they'll just send an email, and they'll think that email is going to solve it. But if you're like me, my email goes into a black hole. So the best way of having a chat with me is booking some time with me in my calendar, so I dedicate that time specifically to you, to unblock you and help facilitate you doing whatever you need to do. And so people just think, well, it's one size fits all. No, it's not. But you have the capabilities of unblocking yourself and getting the most out of that person in the best way for them. And sure, it takes longer, but it's more effective. And actually, in the long run, you may think it takes longer, but if you keep sending emails and chaser emails and they're not coming back and you're feeling demotivated, it probably doesn't take longer.
No. Well, I guess the point is also, who are you? What are you trying to get? I guess the point is that how you make those people visible within your teams as well. So, it's not just about me, far from it. It's about the team supporting and actually getting that message and getting them involved in terms of what you're doing, and actually getting them on that journey and making sure that they are then respected for what they can, you know, what they can contribute. And I've done that a lot. And, you know, people have, you know, set up a centre of excellence when it came to digital marketing. So you make sure that you've got your SEO person, your SEM. They're the ones that are spoken to or we're working with in order to sort of get the real data, get the technology, get the technical pieces of it, as well as where you would go with someone who's building web pages or doing the automation, for example. It's really important to have them with you around, also in terms of the data, setting up dashboards, you know, getting the right people to do the right job, but also giving them that visibility and confidence. And when they need your support, provide that support. And you're right, though, and I think there's been a lot of that was lost in the last year when you're not having those water cooler moments.
Yeah,
we're not making coffee in the kitchen and you're talking to people and you're finding out what's going on and how, you know, you have to make a real effort these days from this perspective. So it's quite interesting that you've said, you know, book some time with me so I can have a conversation like this, as opposed to, you know, I'm just going to send an email, or, you know, pick up the phone. Sometimes you could just pick up the phone as well to help. So there tends to be I think that's something that people would need to really, I would see that as one thing in terms of coaching the next generation of marketeers, if you like, going forward, and feeling confident to do this. And I think it's important that you make people shine.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the focus and the structure. If you're going to be working with, if you want to get something from someone who like sign off on something, and there's someone that's more senior than you know, you have a call with them. You start at the beginning. You say, this is what I want to get out of this call. So you set the expectations. You do the call, you get what you need to get, and then you finish the call. If you manage to give some time back, even better. And what a fantastic experience. They're like, happy days, I'd love to speak to you again because you give me time back.
Exactly. And I guess, and that's really important. Be clear on what it is that you want to get out of those types of things. I mean, you can go on some of the generic stuff around meetings because they could go on forever if no one's got a structure to it. Yeah. And I have a lot, you know, just have a lot of talk and, you know,
we've all been in those meetings, a meeting for the sake of a meeting.
And I don't like that sort of stuff.
I do know. One senior marketing exec says to me that at the beginning of every year, they like to do something like, was it calendar bankruptcy or something? And they literally wipe their calendar.
Oh, lovely.
Right, start again. Who is me?
That's really good. I do think it's important to do that and to make time so you can actually do some work. Again, it depends on what level. If your role is to really start talking to lots of people and actually pushing that through, that's what you do. Yeah. You know, but you still need to balance that time with, you know, having a lunch. Yeah,
exactly. And actually doing work.
And then actually sort of, exactly, doing some work, actually pushing.
Yeah, actually doing work rather than
talking about
things. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
So what's your ultimate career goal then, Santa?
Ultimate career goal?
I know it's a tough one because you're probably there.
I'm probably there to a certain extent. I am, you know, looking for a workplace where, you know, my senior marketing person who actually, again, as I said before, facilitates, makes things easy for the business as a whole, translates things, getting things done, seeing things that you can achieve, setting that strategy and making sure that you move towards it. I can provide a lot of that drive and commitment to do that. So there's nothing specific as such, because I know that if I'm in an organization, I will do my hardest to get to where we need to get to and make things happen. And that's what a lot of people say, you know, actually make things happen rather than just talking about it. You know, it's a balance of both, you know. It's really important to do that, but also bringing everyone with you. So I love working with teams, for example, you know, teams that have, sometimes I've had quite a few teams that have changed over the years, but, you know, making sure that those people are seen as individuals as well, making sure they go to the right places that they need to go to, because marketing might not be what they want to do. It could be that they want to be a florist, or, you know, and helping them to do that. So, you know, something like that, but equally getting involved with organizations, different types of organizations, and solving their problems.
So if money was no object then, what would you want to be doing?
If money was no object, blimey. Retiring. Sipping mojitos, like I said, mojitos or whatever they're called.
Yeah, exactly.
On a beach somewhere, taking it easy. No, I mean, Yeah.
You love your volunteer work though, don't you?
I do some volunteer work, and I've done that. I work with I'm flabbergasted on the work that happens in schools. I don't think people appreciate the work that they do there, in terms of everything that I have to report into government, into local authorities. The fact that they love their pupils. It's fantastic to see that it's the nature of what they do is really to help build these great people into great human beings, for the future. And it's lovely to see. So I'm a governor with an organisation, with a school, and I've seen that. And in terms of how they have to, work with budgets and actually new schemes that come up, especially around the COVID time, the new things they have to do and be able to communicate that. So I think it's, I love doing that. Plus, the way I look at it, as well as, I've got, I'm running a couple of things, I support my parents as well, because, it's almost like running 3 households.
Yeah.
Running 3 households, and a business, that my husband's business as well. So it's, there's quite a lot there that keeps me occupied. So even if I'm,
yeah, definitely.
And it'd be great to find things in between that too, that, really be able to show things.
There are only so many hours in the day, Santa.
I know, and I think that's really important to keep in mind.
What inspiring professional books would you say are a must read for a marketeer, and why?
Right. Well, as always, I'm going to say I've got, I read books, but the main thing I look at are mainly around, looks at blogs and articles. So I look at Smart Insights, Digital Donut, I've got great newsletters. And again, Jakob Nielsen's got newsletters as well that I sign up to. But equally, going back to people that I've worked with, people that are very cool. I've got some books, people, I'm going to show this.
Right to Sell.
Right to Sell by Andy Maslin. He was my boss actually at Euromonitor, who then asked me to go to Chicago to set up their marketing operation there. And he was a great copywriter, and he taught me how to really to write great copy. And what's important is that, as always, everyone thinks that everyone can write, but it's a real skill when it comes to copywriting. And he showed us that, how to do it, slash and burn things, cut things down, think about your audience, think about the fact that they haven't got, you're not writing a piece of prose, it's not Wuthering Heights, it's you're trying to get people to do some certain things. The Ultimate Guide to Great Copywriting, fantastic. There's another one actually, is about digital leadership, and this is again someone else. She was in my team, Sophie Sondell, amazing woman. I brought her in. I think it was in 2008 to work on video content, to work on social media, to look at test and trial new digital techniques in those days. And I'm really proud to see that she's done a fantastic job, and she continues to work on that. I think she's gone back to Sweden now. Cashing in content.
Ooh.
Really, really important. I think it's all about, it's a bit old actually, but really a good way on how to sort of, how you can cash in on your content. Because remember, people forget, how do you drive people to your website? It's about the content. It can look the way, it doesn't have to look well. It just needs to be, the information structure needs to be good, but your content needs to be optimized in a way that gets people. What do people do? The first thing they want to find out something, they don't go, oh, let me go to this website. They don't. They go to a search engine, Google in the main, in this country, and they do a search term. You've got to make sure that you're found, you're ranked in the first page, and look at how you can get that. So that was really, those are 3 books. Then there's also another one, Business Model Generation, really interesting book.
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? I've got that.
Have you got that? It's really, really inspiring and really quite easy to read and look at and refer to all the time. So I think these are the things that I would look at from a marketing perspective to give you that view. But there are tons. So we could.
There are so many. I know.
So many. It's the ones that you look at and you think, oh, well, yeah, that's quite interesting. Oh, yeah, I'm going to refer back to that. What did that person do? Where did not something you forget things. I'm just saying it's quite nice to then sometimes go, I've done this way. Let me go and I need a bit of reassurance sometimes.
Exactly.
So you go back to it.
Exactly. So you kind of mentioned a couple of newsletter signups and things, but if you were to say what your favorite book or your favorite podcast or your blog is, and I know you said you like to read articles and blogs and so what would that be? And you can mention a couple if you want to.
My favorite book,
blog, podcast, Which one is like your most favourite that you, any one of those?
I don't know, blimey.
Is there a really helpful
digital
blog?
series? No, I'm joking. I told you the blog really is around the digital tone-up blog, or the Jakob Nielsen blog, but also the chief marketing technologist, Scott Brinker's got quite interesting blogs, articles, especially around MarTech.
There we are. Perfect. So if you could travel back in a time machine and you could tell your early career self anything, what would you say to them?
I would say build those relationships.
That has just laid another egg.
Don't lay too many eggs. I thought they could only. No, that's another chicken.
6 chickens. We could have this 6 times.
6 eggs. We've got a dozen eggs. That's nice a day. Lovely. Every other day or whatever it is. I would say just make sure that you are kind to people. I'm not saying that I haven't been, but I think it's really important that you understand, know the people that you work with, know your team, be empathetic to what they might be going through, because you don't know what they're going through. And I only see that because if you get to know people, then you know how to have those great, meaningful conversations and relationships. So the reason why, again, I always bring up football is because most of my team, we could talk about, Tottenham or Man United and how they played and worse. But it wasn't just about that. It was the fact that that's what was interesting to them. Find out more about their, what they like, what they don't like, as people, as humans, not just as an asset or a number. And that's where the empathy comes in. And I think that could really help. I'm saying that's where I have grown over the last years, is that really got to know the people that I work with, and I'm still in contact with quite a few, still to a certain extent, coaching them, mentoring them. If they've got issues, they'll come to me and say, look, can I just have a conversation about this, that, or the other? I'm like, yeah, it's fine, no worries. Well, I hadn't thought about that. So it's really important to keep those. So I think it's treasure those relationships over time, because A, they're great memories, but B, they could always come in handy. And
absolutely.
Catch up with people.
And I completely agree with the fact of connecting with people and talking to them as people. And often I've found that can be very advantageous if you're working with someone who people may feel is a bit challenging or a little bit difficult. And actually, if you get to know them as a person, you build up the relationship and you have a much better working relationship, but also you're just taking time with each other, and it's not always business. I think sometimes, when you're having meetings, you do start off a meeting, you're like, right, let's just get straight into it. And some people will start a meeting just before they actually have their meeting, like they'll come in 5 minutes before and they'll have that 5 minutes chit chat. So if you're free, come in 5 minutes before, and we'll just chit chat. And then when it comes to the point, we can just go straight into it.
Yeah, what's really important though is that to give people, when I talk about teams, to give them a safe space. My latest team, for example, we would talk and discuss things all the time. We would have discussions and disagreements and agreements, and that's really healthy if it's done in a positive, constructive way. Now, you won't necessarily show that externally. You'll just see it. Well, it will manifest itself in the way that they work. Yeah, they'll become experts. They'll be seen as experts, but you don't have to show them every. Do you know what I mean? The externals don't need to see that, but you can see that in what people say about your team. There's a great talent. And I think that's fantastic. But you have to give them a safe space to say things. Might not agree with it, but then we'll have a conversation about it. We'll have a discussion, and then we can look at how that works out. And we can always agree to disagree. At the end of the day, that's life, isn't it? So you can't all be all on the same. Have the same views. Everyone has different opinions and views. But if you're all together and sharing those a bit to get to the end goal, it's about then making sure we find the right approach to that. So be kind, be empathetic, understand people. It's okay if they're not there yet, or if there will be a reason for. There will be a reason for the way that they might be acting or whatever. So find out, ask questions, have those discussions, talk. It's okay, because there's people come from a good place in generally, people come from a good place. You're talking about, you might find people who are judged really quickly, and I don't like that, because it's not really fair. As you said, when you get to know them, you know, they're always coming from a good place, or there may be a reason why they're doing what they're doing. But don't just, you know, you understand what that is, and then adapt.
I'm often brought in those situations to help with challenging relationships, and I'm just like, I just get to know the person and just have a bit of fun with them and just be myself, and if we tell and it works, then great. If it doesn't, then I'd need a different approach. But I'm just there to facilitate, to get things moving, and just to make sure that everyone, like you said, everyone has a safe space that they're being listened to. And I think that that's incredibly, vitally important. But there's a reason, Santa, why you have such high performing, such good teams that you're leading. And that is because of your management style and your approach. And that is why you're so respected. And that is why people look at those teams and go, they're really achieving something special, because you give people the space to grow and develop as individuals, but as well come together cohesively as a team and be respectful of each other.
Absolutely.
That's always been the case.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And, you know, keeping to that is really important, but then you need to make sure that, you know, that great team isn't lost because people are seeing something else somewhere else, you know. So, you know, what I've done in the past as well is making sure that there's visibility for that, for what they've achieved and what they've done. And what tends to happen is, you know, from our point of view, the marketeers love the teams. You know they get help, they're professional, but it's how you escalate and how you permeate that across the business as well. And that's a full-time job. Yeah,
absolutely. Line management is like, even if you only have a couple of people, is a full-time job in itself, and to try and get your job done around it, especially when you're in an organization where you have to start adding in performance objectives and reviews and
yeah, we all know what that's like.
You don't have to do that anymore, do you? Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, but that's what happens. And what people need to understand is that you know, people are the ones that make the organization. Your people do everything, not the organization on its own, right? So people make up the organization, or whatever you might want to say, but that to me is really, really important, and is the backbone of any success, because it's all about the people and the culture. And then, you know, if everyone's on board, you can look at how you can transform and how you can move on. There's no point just talking and talking. It's about making sure that people are led. You know, there's an example that is set. You lead by example. We see this all the time. You know, it's great when people are talking, but you're not actually seeing anything manifest itself. And I think that can become quite frustrating in some areas. But you keep with it, because you've got to think about the people first. You know, not as an asset, although they are an asset, absolutely, but they're people. They have feelings, and if you want to get the best out of them, you get the right people to get the best out of them, and you reward and recognise in the right way. No point, you know, after the fact, you know, because that's, you know, I in my career, I've had my churn has been really low in terms of teams, and that's because, you know, we help people as well. You know, if they think that's not right for them, we help gear them to where they need to be, and that to me is success as well.
Yeah,
you know, so it's really important. Focus on the people.
Let people go to let them grow, don't you?
Absolutely. So, you know, I just think that's quite important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's people that make up an organisation, not the organisation. But then on the other side of that, what can be very difficult is restructures and making people redundant, and sensitivities around that. And at the end of the day, it's how we as people react to those situations, because I've been made redundant twice. And at the end of the day, in that respect, you are a number, and it's not personal. It's just the business.
It's the role, remember. It's the role, not the person.
And they're going to do what they're going to do, and you are a consequence of that. But as a consequence of that, it then depends how you're treated in the situation of.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I've seen a number of restructures, been part of a number of restructures, and I've seen ones that have been really successful, and I've seen ones that haven't been. that successful. So whilst, the organisation needs to do what you need to do, totally agree with that. But there is an approach, and it's finding the best approach to do that. Because, you've invested in those people as well in the past, right? You've invested in those people, and then just not things. But it depends how you approach that as well, and how you see it, and you see it as an advantage. It's your next step. Some people say, well, there was a reason for that, because I've gone on to do something else, for example. So it's really important to put perspective on, but you have to help people you have to help people with that. Don't just throw them out in a way and left without any support. You have to help them through that process. And that's something that, in my career, I've done that a number of times, and really people have come up to me and going, actually, that's what I want to do, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to work on something different and go off and do something that gives me that confidence as you still build other teams, etc. So if you get that out of someone, that is something that is a great feedback, and it makes you feel good too, because you're not saying, well, you don't know how they're going to deal with it. It could come out completely different. But if you support them in a way that makes sense and are clear with them, I think that's really important. And you have those discussions, and it doesn't come in just as oh, by the way, this is what is happening. You've got people involved. They don't see it as a shock. It's obvious, and you think, right, and that's how you deal with this sort of thing. So that people are bought into it as well. It's amazing how you can turn things around. Where you feel that restructure isn't a bad word. But I think
also, like what you were saying with the people to people side, what's interesting is, as you were talking there, it made me think of Zoe Loveland, who I've done one of these Inspiring the Next CMO podcast with. She was my manager the first time that I was in a redundancy situation. I wasn't made redundant, but I was in a redundancy situation. And it was really interesting talking to her, because she was talking about when she came back to work and how she was feeling as a new mum, and there wasn't anywhere in her peer group that was in the same as her, and how she felt quite isolated, etc., etc. And as we were talking about her experiences, and some of it would have been when she was my manager, it was really interesting, because when you're in that redundancy situation, it just becomes a bit, it just becomes
overwhelming.
Very much of a moment. But to take a step back now and to look at going, wow, Zoe was going through that, and she was having a specific thought process at this time about this, and this would have been a new situation for her as well, not to have done this kind of situation before in terms of redundancy with her team. You sometimes have to take a step back and think of what about the other person, because it is that people to people situation, and
absolutely.
They're not going to be enjoying making you redundant.
No, absolutely.
Redundancy situation. So
absolutely, I totally agree. It goes both ways, but but the communication needs to be both ways as well. In terms of having that. And again, if you've worked with these guys for a long time, you can be straight with them. I don't think there's personally, maybe some HR people going, oh, you don't do that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with people's, it's a tough time anyway. Even though if you're going through restructuring, it's only a few people that might be sorted. People will always see how other people have been treated. They will see what that looks like. And they may think, well, I don't really want to be here anymore. I think it's time for me to go. And maybe that's something that happens anyway as a derivative, or not derivative, but as
definitely a consequence, isn't it?
A consequence, absolutely. Thank you. It's a consequence, and you need to think about that, because you don't want all your good people all going, but good people will go if they see that things are managed in a way that could have been managed in a better way. If you know what I mean? Because they think they might have lost faith in the organisation or whatever. It's like, time to, people will walk out, especially after they may have given feedback over a long period of time and they don't see any change. I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind as well.
Also watch and see how you react as well. And if you react badly because emotions are heightened and you're in an open plan office space, that, our industries that we work in are so incestuous that it's highly likely that you're going to end up working with someone again somewhere else, or they're going to be at an organization. And so it is important that we continue to conduct ourselves in the best way.
Absolutely.
And then, when you get home, you can swear and curse and shout across the room, whatever. But you always want to be trying to just do the best for yourself, because it is about that long-term future for yourself as well. It's very tough. It's very...
Absolutely. And also keeping that, you're absolutely right, keeping that professional stance as well. When you go up your last meeting, you're still doing what you were doing before, as in, participating, collaborating, not just switching off.
Yeah.
As well. So it depends, because again, do people, when it happens like this, what is the process of going out? Do you want to say, all right, go right now, or do you want to say, look, we still want you here to do handover and stuff like that, but do it in a way that makes complete sense and it's respectful both ways. That's really important.
Absolutely, respect. So what's the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
Oh, I thought I talked about the advice around making, not everyone is running at the same speed.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
Yeah.
And, people will come around if you're giving them the communication. They will then get it. You just have to give them the time to, everyone's different, right? More people reflect. Other people get it because they see the future. They've just got everyone is different in terms of how they absorb information. So that's what that was some great advice that I got from one of my bosses.
Yeah, perfect. So what's your number one tip for anyone working in marketing right now?
Gosh, number one tip, marketing. I think one of the main things is making sure what is it that your client really wants, because it's really important to understand those needs and for you to be able to provide them. And I think that's quite important. Always put yourself in other people's shoes so you get a real understanding.
And like you said, be a translator to the organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love that. So what do you miss most since the COVID-19 pandemic?
Oh, it's the people in the office. It's the water cooler moments. It's because I think you get a lot of information. I think this whole thing about working from home is important. So you can get a balance.
Yeah.
But it's a bit like, when we're in a team, you learn things. Yeah. You get into huddles. There's someone sitting behind you who's got an issue. They can just turn around and go, look, how can we solve this? And you get together and you solve it. And that's one thing that I really miss, because whilst you can do it online, it's not as spontaneous.
Yeah.
I love that spontaneity. Right, what we need to do, how do we do it? Oh, what about this? And you've got people really participating in trying to find that solution. So that's what I miss since the pandemic, really. The people. I'm a very people person. I love people. So, that's what I miss.
But hopefully, as things get back to some sort of normality, and organisations have a more of a blended approach when it comes to
absolutely
where and how people can work.
Yeah.
That when we are together with people, is that it's more valued, and it's not just something that we take advantage of now. It's something that we constructively use at that time, really much better than we had done before.
I agree. I agree. I think it's because people are then able to prioritize or think about when they're at home, what will they do when they're working from home?
Yeah.
Versus what they do when they're in the office.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's how you can learn things, how you can have those conversations, things that you wouldn't normally. Again, you talk about serendipity, right? It could be that when you're having these discussions, something can come out of it. When you might be working from home, they might be doing their admin when they're working from home, or writing a report or whatever, so that you don't have any distractions. So I think there are going to be some relatively clear lines around what works best. I think there's, over the last 18 months or whatever, people have found what works best in which context. And that goes back to your point about saying people will re-engineer, if you like, what they do, how they work, what's the best thing to do. I totally get the fact that people have, saved a lot of time by not commuting, all of these things. Yeah, but equally, I think people have worked longer as well. My experience is that you're 24/7. And there's a discipline that needs to come from that. I remember when I went back into the office last year during the July, October time, I loved it because when I got home, my computer was shut off.
Yes. Well, it's much easier when you
in the office. Yeah, it's there always in front of you. You hear something, you're like, okay, a bit like the mobile phones. You know, when we first got our work phones, you're always on them. It's like, no, you have to make sure that you get that great life-work balance.
Well, it's a novelty at the beginning, isn't it? But the problem is, it's like when you start a new job, and if you put in those extra hours at the beginning when you start a new job, that becomes a learned expectation that's what you're going to continue to do.
Absolutely.
And you have to continue doing it, and you can't suddenly not do it, even though you were super enthusiastic and excited at the beginning. It's like, set the boundaries from the beginning, and that's what people expect. So I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today. It has been absolutely mega. The insights and the information that you have given us have been absolutely awesome. And I'm going to make sure that we cut some of this up into some bite-sized chunks, because there are some incredibly valuable insights that you've given, and also top tips for those in terms of when they're thinking about setting out on their journey, when we're looking at accessibility, when you're looking at automation, when you're looking at marketing technology or MarTech, I can't even say it. And when you talked about new categories as well. So there's some fabulous stuff in here. So Santa, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Great, it's been a pleasure. You know, I like talking, right? So I like asking questions, I like listening, I like to hear what's going on, and I like to speak, I like to talk. I like to share, put it that way. I do like to share.
That is it. You like
I've enjoyed it. It's been great. I can't believe we've spoken. God, can you see the time?
I know. Doesn't matter. It was well worth it.
Yeah, fabulous. Really enjoyed it.
That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.